So a very good morning. My name is Katharine. I'm MD for Dacxi in the UK and Europe. And welcome to today's session, which is entitled Property and Crypto Wealth Strategies. So the information I'm giving you is correct as of today, which is Friday the 17th of June. There's a little bit of market data in here, which hopefully you'll find interesting. So I'll just share my screen. So hopefully you can all see some PowerPoint. Just press the right button. There we are, and we're away. So yes, huge welcome. Thank you for joining us. I know I've got some people listening live, and we also send these out as a recording. So hi if you are watching on Listen Again. So look, the purpose of today's presentation, we put out a lot of content which is specialist towards a property audience. And we know there's a massive overlap in the property and crypto ecosystems. So I've got a chat function on the live version. So for those of you that perhaps are new to Zoom, if you float to the bottom of the screen, you'll have a chat button. So feel free to note any questions, either whilst I'm talking or at the end. I'll try and keep an eye on it as I'm presenting. If you're feeling a bit shy, there is also a private chat button. So if you don't feel like addressing the room, you can ask just me. So just bear with me 1 second. Just need a slightly different view. There we are. Great. Okay, so I think everything's working. So a quick disclaimer, the information I'll be giving you in this recording or live is not investment advice, financial advice or trading advice. Rather, we try and provide education, inspiration and information, and certainly not a sales pitch for Dacxi, rather just a collection of my thoughts around property and crypto, as I'm one of the few people in the industry that's had a career which overlaps on the two. So Dacxi is a asset exchange, digital asset exchange. This is a little shot from our website. And our tagline is that we want to make crypto easy to understand. It's quite a complex industry. There's a lot of information out there. And if you start Googling, you'll often find that you disappear down a black hole fairly quickly. So we put out a huge amount of free education around crypto themes and generally intended for people that are new to crypto and new to the industry and just really trying to get a sense of what's out there. So a quick run through the agenda today. We'll probably be talking for around 20 minutes, something like that. It's a huge, quite a big sort of agenda to get through. So I'll be talking about my experience of property, the career that I've had, what as a property investor is keeping me awake at night at the moment. We'll talk about some of the stuff that I've seen in the industry over my last 15 years or so, which is good, bad, and sometimes very ugly. We'll talk about why property and crypto go together well, in my opinion. Property post-coronavirus, obviously there's a lot happening in the world right now, which is unprecedented. I like the gist that the word unprecedented, the use of the word unprecedented is currently unprecedented. And we'll talk about finding yield, which of course is what all investors, be they property or otherwise, are after. We'll run through an introduction to crypto. The purpose of today really is just to run through some of those themes that you'll be looking at if you're investigating crypto. We'll look at diversification, what to expect, why it's a good idea and how you can achieve it. We'll talk about crypto and how and where you can start and what to avoid. And I've also got a guest speaker who I think is on already. Dave, I think you're currently showing up as me, but you're there. And Dave will be talking about how, as someone from a property background, he's got involved in crypto, how he's found it and what he's done. So a quick introduction to me for those that don't know me. This is me on LinkedIn, so feel free to find me. I've got thousands and thousands of contacts, but still accepting more. I'm currently managing director for Dacxi in the UK and Europe, which is a post I've held since February. And Dacxi is actually my third blockchain business. I've been advisor to two others, one which was a tokenization property focused business, which recently valued at 15 million. And I also have held a advisory position for a health tech business, which is blockchain related, which has recently been valued at just over 5 million. Before that, I worked in capital markets technology, but the majority of my career has been property focused. So as I say, I'm one of the few people that can draw some great comparisons between both property and crypto. So the purpose of today is not to slate property or infer that property and crypto are in any way better or worse than each other. I want to talk about how they go together quite nicely. So really this presentation for me is a love letter to property. Obviously I don't get to talk about property very much now I'm involved in a crypto business. I've spent about 17 years in property, both professionally and as an investor. When I first graduated, I worked for a very posh estate agency in the home counties, and I also started renovating. So I got an interest in buying up dilapidated houses and really enjoyed nothing more at the weekend than doing lots of DIY. I then spent 7 years working for a hotel developer. We sold about £400 million worth of investment property. And a lot of that was through a pension route. And during that time, I trained and looked after, with a team, about 2,500 agents that represented those developments across the globe. After that, I worked for a social housing developer in the States. I had global sales with the exception of the US, and we had a fixed interest bond. I've also worked for, at the time, was Europe's largest peer-to-peer lender for property, and we raised across a huge number of asset classes, whether they're residential, commercial, farmland. We did some interesting stuff with quarries. I can recall someone wanting to raise against a graveyard. So huge amounts of weird and wacky asset classes. More recently, I've worked in technology for investment banks, asset managers and hedge funds. I worked for a niche technology provider, working with Deutsche Bank, UBS, Metrobank, Citi, Sainsbury's Bank, lots of different well-known financial businesses. And more recently, as I say, I've worked for blockchain. And I've personally been involved in crypto for about 2 years now. My first purchase was about 2 years ago, and I very bravely bought myself £100 worth of Bitcoin. And I also trade now, just really for my own interest. So since 2005, I've invested in buy-to-let property. Apologies for the not brilliant quality pictures. They are courtesy of Google Maps. Transpires that it looks like I do really enjoy some brown brickwork. I bought mostly through no money down between sort of 12 and 15 years ago, between High Wycombe, the Midlands, reasons best known to myself at the time, in Stoke-on-Trent. The cheapest thing I purchased was around £80,000. The most expensive was around £400,000. Some of it was new build, some of it was technically rated a hovel and needed complete renovation. I've been involved in farming, which I think is disastrous, but probably just a lovely hobby. And the purpose of this presentation is not to slag off property, but to look at some of the challenges that property is facing right now, and how crypto may factor into and fit into your wealth strategy. So some of the challenges for property at the moment, this is probably what, as a buy-to-let landlord, keeps me awake at night. And I think the challenges, I don't think the challenges that property has as an industry, not to say they're insurmountable, but if, like me, as a buy-to-let landlord, it's probably causing you a fair amount of grey hairs. So I think the real challenge for property investors is yield. The days are probably gone where people were looking to purchase property to replace their day job and just have it as, you know, their solid income. And I think, look, in terms of capital growth, we are, well beyond that point where property was doubling every 7 to 10 years. Of course, we had a massive general financial recession, which you can see on this graph of house prices in 2009. And it took us till late 2015, early 2016 to get back to those historic levels. And since then, obviously, that capital growth has very much leveled off. There's a lot of talk around what will be happening post-coronavirus. Obviously, we're just getting to the tail end of everyone being furloughed, so the government is essentially picking up that tab. And of course, lots of property owners have been able to have a mortgage holiday. So you've had 3 months where you can not pay a mortgage, and of course that doesn't affect your credit rating. So look, a lot of challenges. The deposits are high. You know, lending is fairly well restricted. A substantial lack of financing, lots of lenders pulling out of the market. A real sense of poor yields. We've actually seen that you are not able to evict tenants during coronavirus, which is quite right. We're now getting to the end of that. And I saw a recent survey where 1,000 renters surveyed said that about 40% of them anticipate not being able to pay their rent in the near future. So look, obviously a big sort of knock-on hit for those property investors. And you've also seen a lot of the property funds stopping people removing money, essentially because you can't value property right now. So there's a big question mark over what happens coronavirus post-coronavirus. And a big one there, I think, is taxation. Taxation for buy-to-let has changed a lot in the last couple of years. So very briefly, for those that don't know, until relatively recently, if you had £1,000 worth of rent and £500 worth of mortgage, you would be taxed on the profit, minus, of course, any costs that you incurred. More recently, there has not been as much tax relief on your mortgage payment, which has massively skewed cash flow. So for me personally, my buy-to-lets I've had for quite a long period of time. There was a time at which they did good cash flow. I paid tax on that and enjoyed extra income. Right now, essentially, I am paying for my tenants to live in their properties, which is frustrating. So look, I suppose just to really clarify the problem, obviously it's about finding yield. I wanted to include this graph, which is the FTSE 100 year to date, which is down about 20%. Obviously, it fell off the edge of a cliff as we got coronavirus really hitting the UK in about March. And we pretty much lost 25% overnight. And of course, a good number of our vanilla financial products are based on that. And I think particularly in terms of what's happening to the property market, I like the analogy that money is like water. It flows to where it's safest, it flows to where the return is the most. And I don't know a property investor that isn't after that double joy of yield and capital growth. And ultimately, of course, they are interrelated. So there's a lot of analysis out there that shares and property are at the top of the cycle, money's being printed. So of course, it's not really a true reflection of where those markets are going to go. So a real sense that they're probably at the top of that cycle. And of course, you don't want to be buying at the top of that cycle. And of course, that is a program that we see globally across the major economies where money's being printed. And of course, we've seen a huge amount of value wiped off global stocks, around $9 trillion as a result of coronavirus. At the same time, of course, savings rates are not looking so hot. We've seen, this is a little screenshot from one of their comparison websites. You'd be very lucky, to be receiving, anything in excess of 1% on savings. And of course, we've got a really low Bank of England base rate, 0.1%, which, to be clear, is the lowest ever Bank of England rate since it was created a couple of hundred years ago. So of course, dreadful, dreadful, dreadful news for people that are relying on savings, particularly the pension crowd. So look, certainly don't want to be giving anyone any great reason to have depressive content today, but I think the economic backdrop is really interesting. So all this talk about there is absolutely nothing that we can compare to that's happened in the past. But I just had cause to have a little look at what might cause, on one hand, property prices to go down, and on the other hand, what might cause property prices to go up. So a couple of things that can motivate a housing market: wages increasing, cash deposits decreasing, or mortgages getting cheaper. So of course, wages unlikely to rise in a recession. Unlikely that deposits will decrease because obviously the lenders are tightening down their criteria a lot. And in terms of mortgages getting cheaper, there's not anything we can really do with that base rate. Other than that, there is some talk about negative interest rates. So I think right now we probably don't really know what's happening in terms of the economy. Certainly in terms of unemployment, it's been quite hard to get a sense of that. A significant proportion of the UK population is currently furloughed, so of course the government's picking up the tab from that. What we do know now is there is some data coming through. You've probably seen in the press in the last couple of days. The Office of Budget Responsibility, which is essentially a watchdog, is starting to give us some data. So a couple of things that came out this week. We're likely to see 13% unemployment next year, which is about 4 million, which is actually higher than the 1980s slump. We've also got about 105% debt as a proportion of our GDP, and it's likely that output probably won't return to normal until 2024. And lots of talk about raising taxation, including capital gains tax, which of course is a real headache for property investors, particularly when it's not your main residence, it's buy-to-let. So lots of talk about taxation, inflation, high unemployment, and printing of money. So all pretty bad news for people like me who are committed property investors. So I think probably the message from Dacxi, particularly from property investors like myself, is that crypto and property sit next to each other very nicely. Perfect bedfellows was quite a nice phrase. Nothing better than a couple of Sesame Street characters for a Friday morning. So look, the only reason why property investors are now getting involved with crypto is purely growth. And I will show you some of those year-to-date figures on the next slide. So I don't think I know many property investors that are liquidating property to get into crypto, but I certainly meet lots of property investors that are having a bit of crypto alongside their property activities. And certainly for people like me, it doesn't conflict with my buy-to-let activities. I've left those, they're ticking over, and they're probably, probably a good long-term bet, I'm hoping. But equally that crypto is just picking up some of that slack. And more importantly, there is some really low deposits. One of the real misunderstandings in crypto is that you need a large amount of money to do it. So a single Bitcoin is worth over £7,000. But equally, you don't need to buy a whole one. So there's plenty of platforms, including Dacxi, where you can get involved at a much lower entry level. For Dacxi, actually, it's £100. So Bitcoin, as we're talking right now on Friday morning, is currently trading at £7,260.27. So for lots of people that don't have enough money for a full deposit, probably 30,000 to buy a buy-to-let in the UK, or if like me, you're based in the southeast of England, substantially more, probably double. Often for property investors, it just soaks up some of that money they can't invest in property. And more importantly, it's liquid. So of course, for platforms like Dacxi, you can sell your Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum as and when you need to. So many of our platform users actually use crypto as a bit of a savings account. And if for any reason they need to sell some of their holdings or all of it, it's a liquid market and they can exit. And for me personally, on the properties that I've purchased over the years, I have done some remortgaging. That normally takes a month. I have done some selling, and that typically takes a couple of months as a best case scenario. So just some ideas about how property and crypto fit nicely together. So the purpose of this presentation is to talk about a bit of an introduction to crypto. So the next couple of slides are just about crypto as a market. So what do we mean by crypto? Crypto is very simply digital money, typically based on blockchain. Blockchain is a well-established technology. It's been around for about 30 years now. And there is a huge variety of cryptocurrency out there. It's about 5,700 digital currencies and growing. But Dacxi's business is very focused on what we call the blue chip cryptos. Across those 5,700, there's a real variety. Some of them, frankly, are hazardous to health. So Dacxi's business is focused on the blue chip cryptos of Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, and our community coin, the Dacx. And just to be clear, those three blue chip cryptos are the ones that the institutional investors are interested in. So just to be clear, of those 5,700 coins, that list, Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Ethereum, accounts for around 75% of global traded volume, which is tens of billions of dollars a day. So out of 5,700, if three of them make up 3/4 of the global traded volume, it is our opinion the vast majority of those coins and currencies will disappear in the relatively near future. The performance year to date has been really interesting. We joke there's only 3 reasons why people buy crypto, and that's growth, growth, and growth. Our platform is not intended for traders. Most of our platform users are buying crypto and holding it. So year-to-date figures are phenomenal. It's outperformed pretty much every other asset in the world, and particularly it's managed to do very well since coronavirus. So the crypto, particularly the blue chip crypto, recovered harder, faster, and better, and more convincingly than traditional financial assets. So Ethereum up 89% year-to-date. Bitcoin, which is the poster child of crypto, is up 27%. Dacx, which is our community coin, is up 20%, and Litecoin is up 6%. So for that reason, a good number of our platform users are swapping some of their crypto, some of their cash into crypto. So I just want to spend a couple of slides talking about an introduction to crypto. We put out huge amounts of free educational resources, whether it's webinars like this one. We have a lot of ebooks. We have a huge amount of content on social media. And this particular graph is from an ebook we produce called The Crypto Boom. If you haven't got a copy, do get hold of it. Ask the person that referred you to this presentation, or if you're listening live, feel free to put it in the chat and I'll send you a copy. So the summary of the argument for crypto is that in 2017, lots of speculators got involved and they made a phenomenal amount of money. They made about 1,300% in the first year. That, of course, then corrected. There wasn't a huge amount in terms of fundamentals backing that up. And since then, that performance has been phenomenal as increasingly more institutions day in, day out come to the table. So our opinion is that as the institutions and the retail audience get involved, those prices will increase substantially. So we put out a huge amount of press coverage. I personally write for the crypto press and the fintech press probably once a week. We take press inquiries pretty much day in, day out. So we put out a lot of content around where we think that marketplace is going. And both from Dacxi and across the industry, there's a real sense that those blue chip crypto should see a tenfold increase in the next 12 to 18 months. And particularly in terms of Bitcoin, that is really related to Bitcoin being a better version of gold or digital gold. And if only a couple of % of the global audience for gold start to use Bitcoin as a way of conveying value, you'll see substantial pricing growth increases. So we probably haven't got time to go into too much detail today, but just an introduction to that theme. So proven technology, blockchain obviously is the foundation stone for cryptocurrencies and is simply a new type of database where the data is spread across the users, and you'll sometimes see it referred to as distributed ledger technology. And this is just the Forbes 50 list of firms using blockchain. So blockchain is applicable across a large number of industries. I mentioned that I'm involved in a health tech business that uses blockchain. You'll see it in agriculture, payments, logistics, aviation. You know, some of the world's biggest brands are now using it. And particularly in terms of crypto, you'll see day in, day out, more and more people and companies coming out really to praise it and in support of it. So some of the world's biggest payment companies, MasterCard is working on crypto wallet projects. PayPal, which is used in 200 countries, has got patents in the area and talking about accepting it. Visa, you can already pay in crypto via Coinbase. And you'll see some of the world's biggest retail businesses, eBay, Amazon, Starbucks and Uber talking about this. So obviously for people that are buying Bitcoin today, whether it's £100 worth or £1,000 worth, need to know there's some demand in that marketplace. You also see a lot of demand from financial infrastructure firms because it is a updated, cheaper and more efficient way to convey value. Of course, it's taken quite a lot of interest from a large number of infrastructure firms. So New York Stock Exchange is talking about blockchain, DTCC, which is in terms of value worldwide, by a long way the highest financial value processor in the world. BlackRock, which is the world's largest asset manager in terms of assets under management. And of course, a number of tier 1 banks. So if you're more interested in hearing more about that, you can see a lot on our social media channels or join one of our WhatsApp groups and you'll see more information coming through. And particularly recently since coronavirus, there's a lot of hedge funds and asset managers coming out in praise of it. Recent good examples of that are Renaissance Technologies flagship medallion fund, which is talking about adding cash settled Bitcoin futures, or Paul Tudor Jones, who is a titan of the hedge fund industry, talking about Bitcoin as a hedge against inflation. So a good number of industry stalwarts coming to the table. So I just want to talk about what Dacxi does. There's a number of digital asset platforms out there, of which we are one. And I suppose a great example or a great analogy is the same as using a website to purchase holiday currency. There's a lot of variety out there in terms of the platforms. We're one of the few which is regulated in Europe and has offices in the UK, just in central Oxford. And that regulation is key. The FCA is only really just waking up to cryptocurrencies now. They put out a research note on June the 30th, which says that the audience for crypto has doubled in the last year and particularly is growing in that slightly older audience. Dacxi is under the FCA for KYC and AML. So again, just some key things to look at in terms of legislation if you are looking to engage with an exchange which potentially is in somewhere far-flung and weird and wacky. And usually we're focused very much on those who want to hold their crypto, and we're focused on education. And we are also looking to list the business on the London Stock Exchange in the next 6 to 12 months. And we also have a very low entry level. So for those that want to use our platform, we have an entry level of £100. So we work with lots of private investors and of course, people purchasing through their companies. And if you look on our website, it looks very much like an online banking app. It was built by us in-house by crypto specialists. And you can use that to purchase and hold your crypto. So most people that are involved with Dacxi either buy the Blue Chip Bundle, which is a program that splits whatever is in your account between Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin and the DAC. And we also have people that we work with who are buying our community coin, which has risen about 400% in the last year. So again, feel free to have a look at our website and have a play around with that. And I'll also talk to you at the end of the presentation for an offer you might be interested in taking up. So a couple of other things that are key to look at. The security rating for any exchange can be checked independently with Mozilla Observatory. If, like me, you are old enough to remember online banking coming out, and there was huge amounts of stress and upset about how secure that was, and the same for telephone banking. I'm even old enough to remember that. So you can check online. We have an A+ rating. That's obviously the highest possible rating. A number of exchanges in the marketplace can't match that. And if you do start looking at the platforms that online banks or high street banks provide, they typically rate anywhere between an F and a B. So well worth doing some Googling to look at that. And I think if you're a property business, which I know a lot of property businesses we now work with, I work with a lot of big property meetups. We do have an affiliate program, and there's lots of property investors increasingly interested, and we seek to help people that are new to that industry. So we work with coaches, mentors, investment property businesses, rental businesses, and we assist people in understanding crypto and reasons for diversification. We've got some great referral bonuses and a huge education program and lots of support for our affiliates. So I'm very happy to talk to people about that. We also have the only certification exam, so particularly for people that are looking for professional development. I believe that unique to the crypto industry, we actually certify affiliates to be able to go out and talk about what Dacxi does as a platform. So that's probably quite enough from me. I want to introduce my guest speaker. Dave, are you on, my love? I wonder if that's you under my name. Can you just unmute yourself if you're there? I think that's you there.
Morning.
There you are. Very good.
Right?
Sorry, yes, I'm good. You're under my name, which is what confused me, which is my fault for sending you my link, I hasten to add. So thank you for joining us, Dave. I try and always get when we do a lot of specialist content, whether it's for accountants, IFAs or property folk, and I always try and get a speaker on who is from that industry and has got involved in crypto. So Dave very kindly has made his time available today. So Dave, thanks so much for joining us. I know you're a busy man. Would you mind just by sort of giving us a bit of an introduction to, I hope you got my questions there, mind you, just introducing sort of what your background is from a property perspective. I've known you for decades. I know you've done a lot in the property industry. Can you just introduce the kind of industries that you've been involved in within property? That would be good.
No problem. Good morning, everybody. Just to give you a bit of background about me, I'm a bit of a strange animal in terms of my background. I've been working in the construction sector now for about 34 years. I've also had the pleasure of working with Katharine previously in property investments, so I'm fully aware of the background of that. But I basically have supplied everything to do with the site, from the fencing that keeps people away, the funding to buy the site and get it up and running, the plant to get the site built out, including big tower cranes and such like, and the bit at the back, which is the structural insurances, which is what I currently do at the moment. So I've worked with people that will build anything from one house or up to a conversion of an office block into 400 or 500 apartments. I've insured about, I would say about £1 billion worth of property over the last 10 years. And it's something I'm really quite passionate about. The industry is buoyant despite what's going on in the background, and a lot of that is to Chinese investors. So one of my clients who bought a building had to get it insured for a certain value, and he had great pleasure telling me that he actually sold every unit before a spade went in the ground. So that's how the property sector has moved in certain parts of the country. What brought me to crypto is actually, it was about 12 years ago. A very good friend of mine was pretty senior at Deutsche Bank, introduced me to this guy. And personally, I was going through quite a hard time. My marriage was breaking up for one reason or the other. And he introduced me to what was quite new and novel, cryptocurrency. A couple of years passed, we had another meeting, and I was offered the opportunity of 10 Bitcoins for the princely sum of £20. I didn't have it, I didn't believe in it, so I didn't buy it. And Do I regret it? Yes, I suppose I do. But it's been nagging away at me from then on. And when Katharine and I met in London a couple of years back and she was explaining what she was doing, it re-engaged my interest in this industry. I probably wouldn't have gone anywhere else other than Dacxi because I like all the availability of all the material that you get online. It doesn't conflict with what I currently do. It kind of works hand in hand. So I can talk to people about insurance. I can still suggest how they can get finance and so on and so forth. And I can also say now that there's another sort of string to my bow. Have a look at this if you're not too happy with the way your money's working or not, as the case may be. I like the fact that it's quite quick. My lead time in terms of initial interest to generating an order can be anywhere between a couple of months to 2 or 3 years. And believe me, some of these big jobs that I've had do take a long time. I've spoken to a potential client this morning, and it's looking like he's going to be putting a significant amount of investment in the next week or two. So that's really good news. And I only introduced him to it 2 weeks back. He is someone I know, so I can approach him in layman's terms. But I also find with this, you don't also have to be an absolute expert in order to generate the interest in the business. It's about communicating, getting that message across, and there are a ton of online information, paper versions, obviously, that we have access to. But that's pretty much brought me around full circle as to what I was doing, what I am doing, and what I'm looking to do in the future.
So can I just ask, you mentioned that you offered some Bitcoin and then said, no, thanks. Was that a couple of years ago? Do you remember how long ago that was, just roughly?
Oh, that was about 2012, 2011, 2012, something like that.
Okay, very good. So, and obviously fast forward now, you're involved. I meet people all the time that were talking about crypto a few years ago and thinking, no, thanks, it wasn't mature enough. I didn't understand it. I didn't trust it. What has made you get involved now and think, actually, no, I'm happy now, I'm confident, that makes sense? What kind of was it that clinched it for you?
I think it wasn't so much right now. The initial second seed was sown in my head in 2017 when I was, I took some time off and was doing a bit of traveling and looking at what the market was doing, and it was going crazy. And I thought, if only I knew somebody that worked in that. And luckily, more luck than judgment, because I know you, Katharine, you are one of the reasons why I've got involved. And the massive part about this, I do a lot of due diligence with my job that I do because I have to. We're heavily regulated as the financial market is as well. But what I liked was the transparency of it all. And I thought, there's so many dodgy platforms out there that I've had chances ring me up, sending me texts out of the blue and such like. This fit, because it wasn't just about cryptocurrency, it's about the ecosystem that we're trying to build up, and it just ticks a lot of boxes for me. So that was perhaps when we started speaking, I don't know, March time earlier this year, which is when it accelerated further.
Okay, very good. And just obviously, you had a little bit of an understanding, now you've become a lot more knowledgeable. Can you talk about how more recently you've managed to get enough information together to go and talk to people about it, and just that process and how you found it and what you'd recommend other people looking to do the same do?
Yeah, I'm furloughed at the moment, so time is my friend. I've got lots of it. I've been on Google and researched the back end and the front end of Dacxi. I've looked at other people. I've looked at the positives as well as the negatives and taken a balanced view on that, because with everything you get that. I've looked through the blue paper, read that front to back. I took the exam that Katharine alluded to earlier. I passed it in 2 attempts, which I was a little bit gutted about because I'm not used to not passing an exam first time. To me, it was relatively straightforward because it was stuff I'd read about, so it made a lot of sense. But yeah, that's how it sort of evolved about, really,
Just research and education, really.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've had communications also with Katharine, with Laurie, who's been extremely helpful as well. I'm one of these people, I don't know everything. If I don't know the answer, I'll stick my hand up and ask someone. And I think that's got to be the right way forward. There are a lot of people that will tell you something that you want to hear, be it in a regulated or non-regulated industry. Trust me, I've heard it all. I'm one of these guys that would rather give the right information as opposed to what perhaps they want to hear.
Sure. Okay. And look, that probably brings me quite nicely to my last question for you, if that's okay. Talk about the support you get from Dacxi, and you mentioned that you've got a lot of contact with myself and with some fellow people in business. What support have you found that you've needed and has been useful? Because obviously it's different for everyone.
Yeah, I'm very much, despite my maturing years, I'm very much into the social media aspect. Facebook and part of the group on there has been very helpful. We get a lot of information through WhatsApp, which is very, very useful. If I had loads more time, I'd be able to participate a lot more. I'm very sort of prolific on things like Twitter, so I can send links and stuff like that. And there's always bits that I can sort of piggyback on the back of and forward and send on to people and potential customers. I found it really, really useful. It's inexhaustive. There just doesn't seem to be an end to the information that's out there. We can even get in touch with the CEO. I'm impressed with his background. I've done a lot of detailed research about him as well. So yes, there isn't a shortage of information out there. I've had no problem finding it.
Very good. And also, look, I quite like I can't find who said it originally, but I think it's true that a week in crypto is like a month in any other time. Like dog years and human years equate. So they say that crypto moves very fast. So look, thank you so much for making yourself available today, Dave. I really appreciate it. And well done on coming on board. I know that it's taken a fair amount of education to get yourself from being Mr. Property, as you clearly are, to knowing about crypto. So thanks, Dave. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
So if I just mute Dave, lovely. So look, just a couple more slides. So in conclusion, I think there is no misunderstanding that we are in for a stormy ride. If you're into property, whether you're a property professional or an investor like I am, diversify now, if not sooner. I think you probably heard myself and Dave use the word educate a lot. Dacxi provides huge amounts of free resources. Property as an industry has been a bit naughty about providing education or charging for it, which we don't do. And there's huge amounts of resources through us, whether it's our webinars or online events. You can find out more about those from our website, and all the free books that we put out. They're very short, easily accessible, palatable reads. And we have a great document called the Blue Paper, which provides a great overview of crypto right now. So look, a huge thank you for those that listen live, a huge thank you for those that are on listen again. If you're involved in property and just considering crypto, we have a really cool offer, which is we have a free 2,000 coins, completely free. There's no obligation, there's no cost. You do need to access that via our website. So do ask whoever sent you to this presentation. I'm afraid we've broadcast this initially on the 17th of July, and that offer is only going to run till the end of the month. So just to put that in as a disclaimer, if you're listening on Listen Again. So look, thank you very much for listening in. Hope you found this useful, and we will hope to